Hey everybody, Barb Higgins here, welcoming you to episode 256 of A Thousand Tiny Steps. I just did like my OG generic everyday welcome to the podcast greeting. Sometimes I just dive right in. So today is July 19th. What's significant about today is tomorrow is the first day of Barb's musical theater camp. This is an endeavor I didn't think through when I decided to do it. By the time you hear this, I will have finished it. It will have been all over the socials, and you'll know that it was a wonderful success. It will be fine. The amount of time I've spent this summer agonizing over upcoming events that I have created for myself and then gotten through it and been okay is too many to count. Having said that, yesterday was the Bill Luti Road Race. I remember a long time ago in my early 20s when I was dating Sev, and Sev was my coach at the time for Nike Boston. We were having a conversation about our screwed up lives and the things that hindered us psychologically. Sev has incredible PTSD from Vietnam, and it really affected him in a variety of ways. I talked about childhood sexual abuse and all of the ways that I was affected by my traumas at that time. And I remember him asking me to name the man in my life that was like the person, my person. And, context is everything. I was living in Boston at the time. I wasn't really thinking of being home. So I tried to go through like my dad, my bio dad. Like I was trying to think through different men in my life. And he looked at me and he said, I can't believe you wouldn't say Coach Luti. And of course, duh, Coach Luti was the complete epitome of a father figure, a mentor, a coach, a companion, a compatriot, and late in life, a friend. He was all the good. Coach Luti could disagree with every philosophy I had and never once let that change how he viewed me. So yesterday was the 59th annual Bill Luti Road Race, July 18th. And it dawned on me that this is my 30th year as race director. 30 years. 1996 was the first year I sort of joined on with Bob Teschik and began to take a more active role in the race. I had won it a couple of times, run it a handful of times. I ran it that year. I broke 30 minutes on the course, a fast enough time to win almost every single race run since then and before then. And I got second to Lisa Brady. She ran 28 minutes and change, and I ran 29 minutes and change. It was a pouring rainy day. My first time ever running the Bill Luti Road Race, it was called the Concord 5 Miler, and it was put on by Parks and Recreation. It was started by Bill, by Coach Luti in 1967. So next year is the 60th running of the Concord 5 Miler / Bill Luti 5 Miler. We often name things in honor of people, and it was in the mid-'80s that a man named Barry Calden, who ran for Granite State Racing Team and Turtletown Athletic Club, that decided, why do we wait until people die to honor them? Bill Luti has done so much for track and field and cross country in Concord, for youth, for running in general. He was actually a founder of the Turtletown Athletic Club. Turtletown is a pond on the way to Loudon in Concord. It's a beautiful pond. Coach Luti used to canoe in it all the time. It was put to the task of the running club to name it the Bill Luti Road Race, the Bill Luti 5 Miler. And that's what it's been ever since the mid-'80s sometimes. He officially retired in 1982. He came back and coached girls cross country and a little bit at Bishop Brady. And then that was it. He was kind of retired, and the race was named after him. The great part is he was the starter, the official starter, and he would always give a 2-mile split. Back in the day, people gave splits. Not everyone wore running watches. Not even everyone had running watches. So you relied on people to yell your mile split. Now people have their Garmins and their watches, and it gives them all this data about their races. So it's quite different. Why am I talking about the Bill Luti Road Race and my relationship with Bill Luti? A couple of things. The 50th anniversary of the Bill Luti Road Race was the year after Molly died, and I was deep into the drug use at that time. I was incredibly out of shape fitness-wise. I was a disastrous mess. And I remember getting ready for that road race, and a deer hit my car. I'd been up all night, not sleeping, partying, or whatever I was doing. And then I had to get ready for the race, set everything up. It was still dark. I couldn't sleep, so I got up at like 3:30 and just started doing it because I couldn't sleep. I figured, why not? And a deer ran right into my car. Fortunately, I was able to continue driving. It didn't take away my ability to drive the car, so I could finish my tasks and do the race. Joni came and ran that year, Joan Benoit Samuelson. She did not know that Molly had died. So she was there, and she said, hi, how are you? And all this, and she acted very normal with me. And so I figured that she probably didn't know what had happened with me, so I didn't say anything. But I look at pictures now, and I looked like complete hell. I remember her, she was chatting with Coach Luti because he was quite alive at the time. Mrs. Luti had died, so he was on his way out, but he was still able to move around and participate. And he was at the finish line. He would hold the finish line banner with me. And I asked them, what are you talking about? And Joni said, we're talking about you. And that was when she realized that Molly had died. And so I will say Joni has been a massive support for me in my dealing with all of this, as was Coach Luti. One of the biggest aspects of grief that people who don't have a traumatic loss cannot understand. And I also want to qualify something for a minute. My dad died, my bio dad died, my mother will die. All of those are sad losses, but they're expected losses. They follow life in the circle of life. You live a long life, you get old, you die. Maybe I'll be very, very sad and my life will be colored by the loss of my mother. But it is not even remotely comparable to losing a child or to losing a spouse or a sibling in a traumatic way at a young age. It just isn't the same. And so the loss frames everything. And the hardest part for me, which was 24 hours after unplugging Molly, was listening to the cars on the highway, and it was Mother's Day, and all I could think of was the world is full of happy, wonderful people, many of whom know me, who are going about their day because everything in their life is fine, and Molly's dead, and my life will never be fine. And in a lot of ways, that statement is incredibly true. Yes, my life is fine, but is it fine? Not the kind of fine it was before Molly died. Not the kind of fine it was before I lost my job. So yesterday morning, I'm in my car. The sun is just coming up with my all full of water stations and coolers and ice and all the stuff I need to set up mile markers to set the course up. And I've done this 30 years in a row now. 30 times I've done this very thing. I was given all of the sort of on-site tasks because Bob Teshik, who was the other race director, lived in Newport at the time, which is an hour and a half away or an hour away. I did the in-town stuff, talking to St. Paul's School, talking to the nursing home, making sure everything was in place. I did all of that. So that was my role for a long time. And so when I started timing this race in 1996, I had only known Kenny for about 3 months. We met on May 6th that year, 20 years to the day that we would do all that terrible stuff to Molly to prove that she would never wake up. I couldn't have known on that day that was Kenny. That's who Kenny would be, the guy on the bus with his kids. I'm driving around doing all the usual things. Kenny's following me in his car. We're setting up the course. We're going around. We're setting it up. And I realize how the same everything is. Everything I do to get ready for the Bill Luti Road Race is the same as it's always been. It's never not been the same. I do the mile markers. I drive the course. I make sure the mile markers are visible. I put the signs up. I put arrows up. I spray paint arrows on the road. I make sure I, have people on the court, like all of it. All the things I do, I've done for 30 years. 30 years ago, I was 32, turning 33. I was married to Eric, although not happily so. I think we were living separately at the time. I had not yet bought Albin Street, so I lived in the tower. I'd only met Kenny casually, like we knew each other, but not super well. I was still running. I did not know what CrossFit was. I was 6 years into my teaching career in the school district, so still really new. Hadn't had any state titles yet. So much has happened in my life since that day. And so I pondered that as I was driving and taking things out of my car and setting up the course, because I'm alone in my car. Kenny's behind me, but he's doing what he's doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. And a lifetime has occurred. The first time I was race director of this race, I hadn't had Molly or Gracie. I hadn't gotten married to Kenny. I was not yet a mother. I hadn't lost baby Gordy. I certainly hadn't had Jack. I still had my job. I still coached 3 sports. I did not do CrossFit. I have lived a lifetime of ups and downs since I started timing this race. And in the midst of all of those ups and downs, all of those trials and tribulations, all of the good, the bad, and the ugly, every mid-July, I direct the Bill Luti Road Race. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I live this constant juxtaposition of thinking, I don't want to be one of those teachers that does the same jog for 30 years, mixed in with, I certainly wish I hadn't lost my job because I'd be in my 4th decade teaching in the district, and how amazing would that be? I often think of the movie Mr. Holland's Opus, and his biggest disappointment was that he just became what he thought was failure, a high school music teacher. And at the end of the movie, his son has orchestrated and played his symphony, the symphony that Mr. Holland wrote, his opus. And he had the same transformation that I had, that the last thing I want to do is be in the same job for 30 years, and then, boy, I wish I was still in my job. In doing this podcast and starting 1,000 Tiny Steps, a lot of it was to examine and research and try to find out where was my first step taken in many things that happened to me. And I know that one of my first steps in the really my job loss was deciding that staying at Walker School was a mistake. That I'd been there 15 years, like I don't want to stay in the same job, I need a change. And I was convinced by Gene Connolly to apply for a health position at the high school. I should have taken a special ed position at the high school if I was going to take any position there. I set myself up for a lot of what happened to me by agreeing with Gene Connolly and by going up and being a health teacher at the high school. This was my not doing the same thing for 30 years. I look at all these little steps I took, going to teach health at the high school. Part of doing my sabbatical in 2008 was that I needed a change. I didn't want, is this it? Is this my whole life? Just I'm married with kids and I'm a teacher. Now I feel like that's the biggest gift I could have. And what that is time. It's the 30 years from the first time I directed the Bill Luti Road Race to now. I've lived a lifetime, 30 years. If I could go back, I would not take a teaching job at the high school. I would stay as far away from Gene Connolly and that whole reality as possible. I would have stayed at Walker School. I would likely still be in the district had I done that. Now, I likely would not be doing CrossFit, and I have so much to be thankful and grateful for as a CrossFit athlete. So, maybe I would have found it because it's gotten big and I'm that kind of person. It might have appealed to me. I've been that way before. So who knows? But I do know that the role CrossFit took in my life because of my job loss is much different than it would be if I just came upon it, in a happenstance way. I don't know what other disasters and tragedies would have happened to me either had I not lost my job, or made those choices. So there we are. The other thing that came to mind for me as I was driving around the course, watching the sun come up, looking at a running route that I started running in 1979, the number of memories and associations I have with Silk Farm Road are too many to count. My own running by myself, running with Jay when I was so in love and enamored with Jay, and working out with Granite State Racing Team and Turtletown Athletic Club, and all of it. It all came back. And then coaching and all the times my high school runners, both Concord High School and Bow, did tempo runs down Silk Farm Road. It's such a great place to do tempo runs. All the years of jumping off the docks into the lake at St. Paul's with my runners and myself as a runner. Just amazing. Everything was a memory. Every time I drove the road was a memory. When I went back out to pick things up, it was more memories. And there were a number of times I was close to tears. The other piece of the Bill Luti Road Race is Coach's family. So, of course, when Coach was alive, it was a family reunion. All three of his kids would come, and grandkids and their spouses. And it was, Coach Luti would sit and everybody would go talk to him, and there would be pictures, and more alumni would come. We had 10 alumni compete this year, and I'm excited about that. There are less and less of us as time goes along. The youngest of us now are my sister Johanna's age. So that would be, 55, 56. They're the youngest ones now because they're the ones that ran cross country for him when he came back out of retirement in the mid-'80s. As the years go by since Coach died, he'd be over 100 by now. He'd be 104, 105. He that was a long time ago. So many of his runners are passing away. When you think, if he was 30 when he started and his runners were 18, 12 years younger, so 12 years younger than Coach, some of his first athletes are in their early 90s now. So of course the numbers diminish and diminish. I worry about the day that we're all gone, although I won't be here to see it. So, maybe it won't matter. Maybe the race won't even exist by then. But I saw Angela and Billy at the race yesterday, and it was the greatest thing ever. It was just such a great thing to see them there. They just need to be there. They're part of it. They get to hear people talk about their dad. They get to see the alumni. It warmed my heart to look at both of them talking to the different alumni that knew who they were and came up. It makes me think I need to do more to facilitate remaining alumni and just Concord High School alumni in general that ran cross country and track for the variety of coaches that have existed at Concord High School since Coach Luti's death or since he retired. Bruce McMahon and Rusty Coffrin, two other coaches at Concord High School that coached boys and girls, are both no longer with us. Bruce died at age 80, I believe, and Rusty died at like 68 from, cancer. It was just incredibly sad. So many of the vital people that hold the history of running in Concord aren't here anymore. I'm it. Coach Mullen isn't no longer with us. There's no other long-term coach at Concord High School for running, for track and field and cross country, boys or girls, that has the knowledge that I have, which makes me sad and anxious sometimes. So there was that. Seeing Angela and Billy was fantastic. I own Coach's house. That's a full circle moment for me. I didn't want anyone else to live there. And that's been a growth experience for me. And so I'm doing some remodeling now to really put it on the market as a rental property that can make some money, or even maybe an Airbnb at some point. It's a great location for that type of home. I'm putting a new kitchen in, turning the kitchen into a bathroom, redoing the upstairs bath, got rid of the chimney. A lot of money sinking into this piece of property, but in my mind, it's worth it because it's money on the other side. If and when I sell it, it's a big pile of money there. It's also a property that provides security for Gracie and Jack when I go. Which gets me to the next part and the next point of this podcast. So managing and race directing the Bill Luti Race for 30 years gives me an incredible before and after. My life leading up to getting involved in that race was your standard high school, college, come home from college, start a career, enter into a first marriage. I was at the very beginning of really my grown-up life. Now there are those who would say I'm more at the end of my grown-up life. Well, I'm at the end of a phase of it, although I'm deep in the phase. I have a young child, so I'm not an empty nester. I still work, and I have no desire to be retired at all. So I'm not a retiree, even though I'm old enough to collect Social Security. I'm an enigma. I'm a unicorn, but I'm 62, turning 63. So 30 years ago, I was 32, turning 33. In 30 years from now, I'll be 92, turning 93. 30 years is a long time. I feel much closer to 92 than I do to 32, and part of me believes that that's because we put senior citizen and old age on people at a really young age. And part of that, I think, is because people didn't used to live this long. But there are those that, I talk to my friends, and they're already thinking about their retirement and where they want to retire. And, retire, to me, that sounds like you've ended your life and it's over now. I need to shift my thinking into it's my next life transition. I'm not married to a 40-hour-a-week job. Now I can be married to living life for me and traveling and doing things. Okay, so that I can relate to and understand. But I'm not ready to stop mattering. I'm not ready to stop working. I'm not ready to stop earning money and, building the Molly B Foundation and all of that. I have 30 years. If I were to do a podcast episode in 30 years from now, saying it was 30 years ago that I celebrated my 30th year as race director for the Bill Luti Road Race, and I'm still directing that race, then I would be 60 years doing it. And next year is the 60th anniversary of that race. That race has existed in all but 4 years of my life. That's insane. That's a long time in the blink of an eye altogether. When I was talking with Angela about all the updates to the house and the shifts and the changes, we got sad. You get a little sad. Time goes by. The circle of life. You meet people. You have this vital, busy life, and then you get older, and then your bodies slow down, and then you're not doing well. And, then things are just different. And then suddenly everyone you knew and loved is gone. And it's just a hard way to be sometimes. So as I give this podcast episode, and it really is the first of my last 5 before some sort of shift. I don't exactly know what that is, but what we know as 1,000 Tiny Steps will either cease to exist for a spell or become something very different. So this is a look back, look ahead episode, which I think a lot of them will be, because I'm coming up on year 5 of the podcast. It's not at all where I hoped it would be, and at the same time, it's more than I ever thought it could be. The people I've met and the journeys I've been on and the connections I've made because of sitting in my room talking to my computer once a week for 5 years are insurmountable and too many to count, quite frankly. But I'm in this place, I'm in this whirling dervish, this circle of life, this hamster wheel of life, this, the more things change, the more they stay the same. This, oh my God, it's the Bill Luti Road Race again. There's a saying called, the days are long, but the years fly by. And it is so true. Sometimes I count the minutes until I go to bed, but then suddenly 365 of those have passed, and it's the next Bill Luti Road Race. It's just one of those things, one of those things. I end this podcast episode really, really missing Coach Luti. Really, really missing Molly. Really, really missing everything about the life I thought I would have. While at the same time, really endeavoring to practice gratitude for the life I do have. Because I've met some amazing people, and I've learned some amazing things, and I've done some amazing things. There I am, straddling the old picket fence of life. Barb Higgins, standing on the picket fence. It's just what I do. So Coach Luti, when I joined track on March 19th, 1979, I had no idea, as I stood in front of that man saying, I'm going to be a star, what he would mean in my life and what would happen to me because I made that one decision, because I had a crush on Bruce McMahon and could see him every day if I went out for track. Sometimes it's not the why, it's just that we did it. My 1,000 Tiny Steps from starting track and running and all the things, coming home and coaching and race directing, really just taking on the life of a runner. I am a runner, I guess, first and foremost. I'm a high rocks athlete and I'm a CrossFit athlete. I'm all those things too. But running is so much of me. Be good to yourself. Take the time to ponder. I've been going for a lot of walks lately, and it's amazing how much I think through when I go for walks. I didn't go this morning, and I can tell. So I'm endeavoring to make that a far more regular part of my life, a morning walk. So be good to someone else. Go for a walk and be good to yourself. And invite someone on your walk with you to be good to someone else. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.